Hello, you're watching James. My name's James, you're watching me, and I'm talking about watches. Well, welcome to today's video, which is the full in-depth review of my new Seiko 5 field watch. I chose the model number SRPG27K. This is the variant of this watch that comes with a black dial and a full stainless bracelet. So why did I buy this particular Seiko 5? Well, for some time now, I've wanted a nice, wearable, everyday field watch. And I've been looking around for quite a while. And what I've been finding is that either they're too cheap and too affordable, or they've been a little bit too expensive. This one, however, when it first came out, I thought, that's the watch that I'm looking for. It's from a brand that I like and I respect. It has a dial that I like the look of, and it's within a okay price range. It's probably a little bit more than I was hoping, but it's within a price range that was still somewhat affordable, and as a result, you get a good watch that's from Seiko. Now, as I said, I got the black dial variation with the bracelet. There are a few other variants though. There are a few other dial colors and a few other strap options. I particularly like the black dial look on a field watch, and if you watch my videos, you'll know that I certainly like watches with bracelets. Now, as with all Seikos, I think we all know that we do not want to pay full recommended retail price. This watch at full RRP is 495 Australian dollars, which I can tell you right now is way too much money for this watch. It's a great watch, but it's not a $500 watch. And with a quick Google search, I was able to find this from a store within Australia for 359 Australian dollars. Now, that's not super affordable. I certainly understand that. I have a lot of watches that are a lot cheaper than that. But Seiko nowadays, the price is going up a little bit more. For that sort of price though, you are getting a very known quantity, a known brand. It was a watch that I particularly liked, so I was willing to spend that little bit of extra money to get this new Seiko 5. But let's turn the camera around now, and I'm going to show you and give you my full review of my new Seiko field watch. So here we have my Seiko 5 SRPG 27K. It comes in a fairly standard Seiko box, nothing too special, but as we always like to say, it is good enough and it will keep the watch safe. Inside we have the watch on a nice big cushy pillow, and from this particular one you have an online registration for your guarantee, so you just click on it and you can go through to Seiko. It also comes with a little hang tag, and as per usual for me, it's fairly standard. I removed 4 links to fit my 6 3/4 inch wrist. So this is actually the second Seiko 5 watch that I've owned. I previously owned the Seiko 5 Little Sea Urchin, and it was a great watch. I really enjoyed owning and wearing it, and I think I'm feeling the same with this one. It is a overall very nice, very good day-to-day wearing watch. But let's have a look at the dimensions and see why it fits me so well. Well, the case itself is 39.2 millimeters. It is 13.5 millimeters wide. The lug to lug is 47.5 millimeters, and as you can see, it has those female end links, so it drops away straight away onto your wrist, which is nice. And it has a 20 millimeter lug width, and set up for me, my 6 3/4 inch wrist, having taken out those 4 links, it weighs in at a fairly comfortable 130 grams. And I have to say, these overall dimensions fit really nicely on my wrist. It is a very wearable watch. I do mention this a little bit when I do talk about watches. Something that is wearable, fits nicely to the wrist, something that you go, oh yeah, that's nice on wrist. And let's check out how they've put this watch dial together, because it is very nice, very neat, very tidy. It has a very matte black finish to it, which really suits this sort of field watch aesthetic. What I do like is these applied numbers and these applied indices. They are brushed, and when you get it at the right angle, when it hits the light, those numbers really start to sparkle at you, which is really nice to see. Really gives it something extra. If it had just been printed, it'd probably feel a little bit more dull. Those indices are all applied, as I've said. They are brushed around the edges, and there's a little bit of lume in each one of them. The hands themselves are also brushed and also lume filled, and it has that nice little second hand, nice little pop of red on the end, and a little touch of lume inside as well. Printed on the dial, we have a minute track going around the outside. We have the word automatic. We have some little information here, which I'm assuming is going to be talking about the movement. We have this new Seiko 5 logo, which is also printed, and the Seiko logo there is actually applied. Now, you'll also see it has a 24-hour track in there, the 24, 13, 14, etc. That is also printed on, but it's not printed on in the same colour as the rest of the text. It is a slightly more grey look. It's trying to match in a little bit with those applied numbers. And at the 3 o'clock we have a colour matched date wheel. It is framed by a simple white box and it looks quite neat and tidy. I'm so impressed that Seiko at this price with their new Seiko 5 line have put the little extra touches in, like adding a colour matched date wheel. As I mentioned, there is a little bit of lume in those indices, hands and on that second hand, so let's have a look at that lume now. And as you can see, it starts off really quite nice, and being Seiko, I'm sure it's that loomy bright lume, and it is very nice and bright and very legible. I have to say though, after a bit of time it does tend to fade away a little bit. However, certainly legible at night and certainly lasts long enough that I was happy with the results of that lume. And that dial is covered by a particularly nicely domed Hardlex crystal, which has a little bit of distortion at the edges. Now, this was unexpected for me. I expected them to have a nice flat piece of Hardlex, which is pretty much what anybody would expect from a watch like this from Seiko. But instead they put this very slight domed crystal on there, and it really makes this watch pop. It really takes this watch from something that is an okay sort of daily wearer, nothing too interesting or special about it, and it lifts it. It really gives it a little bit of character. Now the case and the bezel has a circular brushing pattern to it. It's nice how when it's brushed along the edges here on that bezel, it then sort of feels like it continues on the case, so it's nice that they're both circular brushing. On the sides we have a high polish, and it's done pretty well. I'm pretty happy with that. It's certainly very soft to the touch. Just like most Seikos when you have, they do feel good in your hand. It's nice and soft. It's very well done. We have a slight bit of circular brushing on that unsigned crown. The crown is unguarded. It is actually quite small and thin. However, it is very easy to access because it is unguarded. Inside the watch we have a 4R36 movement, which also has hacking and hand winding. It is not screw down as you can see, so I'm hand winding at the moment. But as mentioned, it also has hacking. And that is such a great feature to see on the Seiko 5 watches now, to have upgraded the movement to include hacking and hand winding. As much as in reality you probably don't need it, it is a nice feature to have. And for me personally, because I do have quite a few watches in my collection, it is nice just to be able to throw a little bit of power in there without having to do the Seiko shuffle. On the back of the watch we have that nice display caseback showing off that 4R36 movement, and it's nice to be able to see it ticking away at this price point. We have that signed rotor, which is quite nice to see, and around the edges it is polished, and we've got some of that information about the watch itself, the model number, telling you that it has a 100 meters of water resistance, it's stainless steel, and it has that 4R36 10A0 movement. And speaking of that 4R36 movement, let's get this on the time grapher and see how well it's running. Normally these have a bit of a nice big gap in how the tolerances are on how they do run, but they do tend to run fairly well, and I'm hoping this one is running well as well. So it's pretty much what you'd expect from one of the more affordable Seiko movements, and as we know the 4R movement, it runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour. It is a slightly high beat error, but it is within the realms of being still okay. Amplitude is okay at 265, and I'm seeing it's running about +1, +2 seconds a day, and as you can even see there, it's dropped down to 1 second. So I have to say I'm very happy with those results. So let's talk about the bracelet, and there's nothing too unexpected from this one. From a Seiko 5, we sort of all know what we're going to expect. We have a fairly nice, neat looking bracelet. It is all brushed on the top. It looks like 3 links, but it is just the one solid link. It is polished on the sides. As you can see, we have drilled end lugs, making it easy to swap it out if you want to, and we have those hollow end links in there. It has a split pin system, and if you have a look closely, these are not solid links. They are a folded piece of steel. It is better than the old rolled steel version. It certainly is nice and soft underneath on your wrist. However, it is one piece of steel that has been folded over just like a little sandwich there. So it's certainly a better option than having the rolled steel, but it certainly would have been nice to have fully solid, and certainly would have been nice to have fully solid end links. And exactly as expected, we're going to have a pressed steel clasp. And now let's show off those really nice wearable dimensions on my 6 3/4 inch wrist. Having that slightly shorter lug to lug, as Seiko is very well known for, it does fit beautifully on my wrist. It has quite a flat case, so it does sit up a tiny little bit on the edges, but when you're looking down at it, that is not something that you see or you're going to worry about. Nice legible dial, which is the idea of these field style watches. You want to be able to see what the time is. It is the main function of the watch. Well, saying that, it's the main function of every watch, but certainly these are more legible than some others than in your collection or in my collection. So what do I like about this watch? What don't I like about this watch? And what would I like to change? Well, this one actually has a lot going for it, and there's a lot of things that I do like. I love that domed Hardlex crystal. I think that is fantastic. I think it really lifts this watch from something being okay to something being a little bit special. Those applied numbers and having the brushing on them, so when it does hit that light that certain way that they glow at you and they sparkle, wow, that really also helps. Nice domed, nice sparkle, wow. Good to have the little bit of touch of red on the second hand, and the overall size. Seikos are very good at doing this, having very nice wearable size and dimensions that fits very nice to my sort of medium 6 3/4 inch wrist. So everything I dislike about this watch really moves away from the main watch head and moves onto the bracelet. The end links do fit really nicely on this watch, but being hollow, we all sort of like solid end links. It'd certainly be nice to have a nice solid bracelet. It'd be nice to have screw links, and it'd be nice to have a nice milled clasp. But even on more expensive Prospex style watches, the bracelets aren't always perfect. My Seiko Samurai, I've upgraded that bracelet to a strap code bracelet, and it is now wonderful. However, a watch that cost twice the amount still needed the bracelet to be replaced. So I've been a little bit negative about the bracelet, but I honestly have to say it's actually quite good. You know, it's not as good as I would like on a nicer higher end watch, but at this sort of price, it's okay. And being that new sort of folded style, it doesn't nip any of your hairs, so it's comfortable on wrist. But if I was going to change anything, I probably still would change out that bracelet to something a little bit more substantial. And I have to say, the little bit of red on the end of that second hand, it is nice to have that little bit of lume. It's very usable at night time. However, I think it would look better if it was just all red, just to give a little bit more color on that dial, a little bit more of a pop. So as per usual, I'm going to flick back to me now and give you some of my final thoughts on this Seiko 5 field watch. So what are my final thoughts of this Seiko 5 field watch? Am I completely blown away by this watch? Do I look at it and think, wow, every single time I wear it? Well, no, I certainly don't. But I am not disappointed in it either. It's one of those watches where I enjoy wearing it. It's something that is a great watch to wear every single day. It has everything I need on the dial. It looks good, it's attractive, it's fun to wear, but it just hasn't blown me away completely. I do have to say though that I'm really impressed by some of the features that Seiko have done on this watch, and they're features that I wouldn't really have expected from Seiko, like having that domed Hardlex crystal. It really adds to this watch. It really gives it a little bit of a wow factor, not a massive wow factor, but just a little bit of a touch that makes this watch a little bit more interesting. I was rather surprised that they did that. I would have really expected just a flat piece of Hardlex, which really would have made this watch just a little bit more boring than it is. I'm also impressed that they colour match the date wheel and all those other things that I mentioned to you about what I do like about this watch. So would I recommend this watch to you? Absolutely. It's a Seiko, it's well made, it looks good, great everyday watch. Would I recommend it to you as your best watch in your collection? Well, no. I think we all know this is not going to be your top end, your luxury watch in your collection, but it is absolutely a great everyday wearing watch. I hope that helps a little bit if you're deciding about whether you want to buy this watch or not. I hope by showing you this watch in as much detail as I have with those pictures and video of it, that you may be able to have a better understanding of what this is like in hand. And I do appreciate you watching, and I certainly appreciate you subscribing if you haven't done so. Just click on that little subscribe button. Well, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again in the next video.